Apple things, and I would go out to try and see the images, whereas as opposed to allowing them to kind of come to me. Oh man, you're right. It's so hard to put it into
But also,
words. Yeah.
also the fact that when you were on breath, all the regionalisms disappeared.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, like all of that.
Right? I mean, that was a surprise, I think, to both
Crazy.
of you, right? How is that possible?
Regionalisms meaning?
You know what I mean? Like, so for instance, I'm from Western Mass. You're
Oh,
from
yeah.
Boston area. So we have, you know, I have this sound that I would say that.
Yeah.
I'm very conscious of that now, you know, before I even say it. But that's a typical when, you know, my dad moved back to Western Mass and I was there, I was hearing that all around me and I realized that's where I picked it up. But when you're on breath, those things sort of disappear. How is that possible? I mean, it's amazing, isn't it? How that would be. So other observations or desires to work on today from anyone? So let's talk a little bit about practice and what constitutes your practice. How do you think about it? I was just practicing now before I met with you. It's sort of my sacred time. It's a place of discovery for me. It's a place of wonder. And I think that that's how you have to see practice, is that it is just, you're just making all these discoveries. But I would be curious in what constitutes your practice. How do you think about that? So, you know, let's take about 5 minutes or so and then have a discussion for this. So somebody just start the ball rolling as to how you do it. What is your practice when you start off your day or you go to school or something? Take your time to practice.
I ever since it was introduced to us, I start out every single day with constructive rest. And I try to obviously I get up and I pee and I get a bit of water first and stuff like that, but still half asleep. I really try to make my first conscious breaths be me being breathed. I really try to get that in before I really go about any actions in my day, just so I start every day reminding myself what it is to be breathed and reminding myself what it is to be connected to the psoas and to be on breath.
Beautiful. What is
days that my alarm doesn't, like I forget to set my alarm or something and I end up at school a little late, it's like the whole day I'm struggling to find it because I've gotten so used to waking up with it and that familiarity.
And what I found so interesting as you were describing this to us, how your voice changed. Because when you first started to talk, I thought, you know, it's sort of down on the chords, it's sort of in this direction. But as you started to explain your process, you were living your process and you started to have the voice much more in breath, exactly what you were saying. So that's very cool to understand how well you're integrating this, that you're sort of living it as you say it. You know, obviously the next step is what I was just saying to Hannah, hearing when one is going down, sensing when one is going down, hearing the voice in a different way. As I was saying to Kyle, it doesn't mean your voice changes in pitch, it just will feel, you will hear it acoustically differently. And so when you hear a voice that is focused, it's going to feel higher to you and you're going to think, I don't think this is me. I don't like this. But it is you. And it is not higher, it is just higher placement. But you've got to be willing to go through that very awkward stage of making a new discovery about yourselves. You know, I know how awkward it is. It makes us all feel very peculiar when our voices are getting focused because it doesn't feel like who we know we are. But of course it is. It's just that trick of the brain doing that. So thank you, Daphne. That was wonderful. Anyone else? Talk about what begins your day. How do you think of practice? What is your practice?
You know, for me, Jean, nowadays, it's that we have more time and less like our schedules are less compact with just stuff. I'll find myself throughout the day, even when I'm walking to the store or something, because that's a big thing to do now, going to the store. Um, I'll be thinking about ground coming up beneath the feet and what that does, and allowing for length in the spine. Like I find myself thinking about that and yeah, just sensing that. And I
Right.
think that, and in the acting too, that's become a big focus of mine, because I feel like my impulse is more at the ready when I am finding ground coming up beneath the feet and finding that length.
Right. Were you making sounds with something just now?
My fingers.
That was all up. You know that, right? It was all up from the very first one. I had you understand. You know, Josh, what is interesting is your voice is very beautiful right now. It's totally on breath. Sometimes when you go to the exercises, it is not on breath. That's
Hmm.
conundrum, right? That is every single person's conundrum, because we go to speak something, we go to recite, we go to act, and inherent in that language is always going to be in the throat. Always. Is fascinating. I mean, you know, the amount of sensitivity one has to get in oneself, but it's very joyful. It's not like it's a big burden to become that sensitive. It's quite fun, actually. So that's really great, Josh. Really great. Other things that you're doing that incorporates this work into your daily practice, whether it's movement or voice.
I've been getting a lot out of the like breathing meditations that we did last week and the week before.
Wow.
And so I've been trying to, and mostly just the being breathed. So waking up and like not jumping to my phone, but just laying on my back and experiencing breath. That's just a little thing that I've been trying to incorporate. And it also helps, I mean, you said last week it helps with anxiety, because anxiety is just like a buildup of, what did you say, carbon dioxide? So
Yeah.
just breathing out, and that's like been a really nice way to start my day. Just a little thing to do to incorporate that.
Be careful, because the arm gestures are connected to unconscious mind. So it really shows us what our thinking patterns are that we don't even know we have. Carolyn, when you were just talking about exhaling, breathing out, your hands went down like this. What direction is exhalation? Up. See, you know, I laugh about this because some students will have been with me 15 years. And then I'll see them and I'll say, when I exhale, and their hands are going down like this. So the continual renewal we have to have all the time, that movement in our bodies, power in our bodies, I want to talk about that today, is up. It's not down. When we catch ourselves, our hand gestures doing something like this, we know that we're a head here and a body below, that's how we're appreciating our beingness as a head to a body rather than the sense of the whole. And you see it across the boards, you know, across the boards. And it's just so interesting how this continual process has to be renewed in us all the time, all the time, all the time, because we just fall back into what we think we know, you know, catching several people, you know, with doing the sort of a mindless which is all down. So there's no, and the question is, well, we're releasing sound on breath or something, but are we really? And why are we doing that? So you always have to ask the why. Why am I doing what I'm doing? How is this adding to my knowledge of coming out of integration, coming out of the whole? You know, it's a fascinating way to work, but that's your art. That's how you become an artist. None of us start out as artists, not one of us, not one. We all end game to beat the band, especially when we're in school. We're always going for the result, being the best we can, no, not the best we can. That's not our psychology generally. Being better than the next person is our psychology if we were really honest, right? If we were really honest with ourselves. The competition, drive me insane when I was in Alexander training, and I'd been performing, professional performer for several years, many years. And I came into training, and it was all this whole, which I felt was so phony, like, oh, we're not judgmental. None of us are judgmental. Everyone is where they are. But that wasn't the truth of it. We all wanted to be the best there was in that school, and there were only 4 of us. So, go figure. So, excellent. One more person. What constitutes your warm-up, your practice? Warm-up is also a good word to use because that's used a lot, right? I talked to Liz Hayes yesterday, and she said, I want the students to have a vocal warm-up. That's what I would like to see, the students having a vocal warm-up. So how would you discuss your warm-up, your practice? Anyone else? Hi, G. Anyone?
I feel like we have so many warm-ups. I'm like warm-up overwhelmed at the moment.
Talk about it a little bit. That's beautiful. Thank you, Hannah. Go further with that.
I don't know. I guess I do feel that sometimes in some of our warm-ups, I lose sight of the Alexander allowing. And I definitely I try to be more, I think I've developed a more conscious approach to warm-ups in other classes. I mean, we have a warm-up in almost every class, apart from scene study. So it's a lot to kind of navigate, like how do I apply this technique in all of those warm-ups?
Beautiful. Give me a couple. That's a wonderful place to start. Give me something that you might do in XYZ classes as warm-ups.
What can I do right here? If anyone wants to jump in with anything that's particularly.
Should I start the ball rolling and tell you what I saw with Merlixie when she told me she was doing a warm-up?
Sure.
Can I do that and show you, and then and she's wonderful. I just want to preface all this and say she's really wonderful, and she doesn't get flustered if I do my usual annoying thing of no. So I'm going to show you this, and I put down the table because I thought maybe that you could see my legs better, but I'm not sure. So if you can't see me, you'll yell. So I'll just tell you what I started her with, and it was just doing a leg rotation. Now I'm going to show you 2 different ways of doing it, and you'll have this on the recording, and you can observe it. But I said, let's do a rotation from the psoas. Well, first I should say, as we're lying down like this, I am aware, and I think we have to be, I don't know if you can see yes, I think you can, my rib cage. I think we have to just come down like this, put hands on rib cage and feel that as an empty barrel. Because all of you, I believe, like I said to Josh, how beautiful the speaking voice was, that proves to me that the diaphragm has gained strength and is sitting in the rib cage. Of course, when we go to recite or speak our text, we have to be very conscious of being on breath. But just the normal speaking voice and how Daphne's changed as she talked to me proves to me that there is integrity and strength of the diaphragm, so it's sitting up in here. Maybe when we started, it had drifted down below the rib cage, but now it's here, so you can really feel this sense of, wow, openness. Let's even use the word emptiness here. You've got this psoas muscle on both sides, right? And it attaches up the lumbar spine, the front of the spine, to here. Solar plexus. So the psoas muscles dangle the legs away. But remember, the psoas goes in 2 directions, like this elastic, rubber band going in both directions. So we want to have every movement come from that place, and it's a real sense of self. It's a real sense of being able to be in communication with something deeper than the ego, deeper than the doing part of us. Let's make that not psychological. Let's say that's the sort of intellect, ego, intellect, doing. So if I ask for a rotation, you have a choice of just willy-nilly doing it from the outer legs, right? For me, that's very uncomfortable because I feel grabbing up in here and disconnect. But if we do it from the psoas, it's sort of like a game. You can sort of let your toes, maybe we did this last week, I'm not sure, slap each other, you know? So that's inner rotation, and that's the psoas. Okay, so Merlixie and I played with that a bit. Then I asked her to bring up her leg, and this is what I saw. And I said, why are you doing that? She had no idea. It was just how, I guess, maybe she thought that's how she should bring up her leg, whatever it was, but it was like this. Well, you see, that's overworking all these outer muscles. You're not in the psoas at all. So when the leg comes up like this, perhaps you can see a difference. Perhaps you feel a difference in your own body. So I found myself saying words like this. I heard these words come out of my mouth. See, it makes me breathe because it's attached to the diaphragm. It's very sensual and it's very pleasurable. I don't think I've ever used that. I've talked sensory, right? Sensing, but I never used the word sensual and pleasurable. But that's psoas. And notice how my hand is just, I'm not trying to do that with my hand. It's just such a state of flow. It's also on a use level of the body, it's tracking the leg in a correct way. Then she did something like this, moving the leg like this to the side. And I said to her, where is that movement coming from? And I said, it looks like you're trying to move your leg in the hip joint. Yeah, so that would seem like she was. So I said, but bones don't move bones. Muscles move bones. When you're coming from the psoas, it becomes that. So once again, it feels, when it's right, like it's magic. It feels like you're up here observing something called being getting moved. I really mean that. I don't expect that you will get that right away. I think, youth is something, it's hard for us when we're young to give up so much. It just is. So you accept it and you move on, right? But eventually it puts joy in it infuses you with joy to feel being moved like this. Big smile, right? So we did that. So that was that. Then, she did the other side, and then we did the leg side to side. So if you are literal, hearing a literal interpretation, this is what it will look like. And you and I, we've all done this a lot together, but this is what it would look like. Feel this in your own bodies and see if you can, quote unquote, see it from a place that isn't staring at me, but sort of getting an impression, an overall impression. So that's one way. The other way is this. So when I was demonstrating the first way, which I know you can tell was not what was wanted, I felt, all these things come into my mind. I felt that my breathing had stopped, that I was trying to do something called moving my legs side to side. I felt totally in my head as though I was watching myself, my movement. But when I'm permitting, I'm into the Josh up, finger snap. So you access this momentum. So that's psoas. That's how you come to know it. Then we went a little bit further. I'm going to show all of this to you so you can then go back and look at it in the recording. We brought the leg to the chest, a very popular exercise for people, quote unquote, supposed to lengthen the psoas. But if we yank on ourselves, if we do this and then try to push on our legs with our hands, we are nowhere near the psoas. But when you permit, see, that's a psoas just lifted my leg. When you permit, you get this. When you start to breathe very deeply, because you are communicating to the diaphragm, you also can see that's my sits bone right there, and it's shooting down that way. So then you have a clear understanding of the whole skeletal system and how it works. And you can just hang here. No tension in arms, no tension in hands, just here. And that's the psoas, lengthening. And it starts to give us more and more and more. And then you let it come down. There is one more thing I don't think I've ever done with you, but I have done with a couple of you. And it's the lifting of the torso. It's hard to really find words to describe it without a doing coming in. I have one student who calls it the bridge, and I let her pass. Some people would call it a pelvic tilt, but in my mind, a pelvic tilt is something like that. A doing of this. In order to do this, and you hear it in my throat, I'm contracting muscles rather than lengthening. Or if I do this, I'm pushing on my body. But here's magic once again. Psoas magic. Feet, remember your anatomy. Gravity stimulates the sensory endings, sensory muscle spindles in the feet to stimulate the psoas, to stimulate the postural muscles. It stimulates a postural reflex. So that's the work. It's the feet doing the work. And it's like this. Feet, 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 knee forward direction, and I'm here, and I'm free, and I'm hanging from those inner muscles that are tensely, continually changing their resting length. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. My voice is incredibly free. I could be here forever. You know, look, my no hands. We're going to do that in a second and share. But, you know, it's just, that's what it's like. So everything is incredibly free. And it feels like there's no effort in my body at all. And then I listen and I permit it to bring itself down. And now I've successfully freed all the next muscles in my back. So I sort of have to move myself a little bit. So that's really how you start to hear, how you start to listen. Now, Hannah or somebody, give me an exercise you might do or some sort of a movement thing that you might do.
Well, were all really good because we do those. Maybe a roll down and a, because that's inherently down, but so maintaining the up as you go down.
And you mean a rolling sitting or on the table? On the floor?
Well, we do it standing.
Oh, that's very good. Okay. Okay. Great. So let's just see how much of me you can get. That's pretty good, right? Can you sort of see? Yeah, that's good, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so I just moved the table over a little bit. So you have to think, where does it come from? Where is the, shall we call it the initiation? Where is the initiation? Somebody shouted out at me, when you're going to do it in class. Do you think about that, or do you just go and do it? Just say anything, anyone.
Well, they say we would lead from with the head lead you down, something like that. I'm not saying it right, but that's the instruction.
Leading with the head.
Yeah, I could be wrong. Someone correct me.
It's usually like forehead, nose, chin.
Okay. Does somebody want to guide me saying those words? Do you want to just guide me with that? And I'll follow your language.
Oh fuck. This is not 100% accurate, but okay. Um. Forehead, nose, chin, chest, and you're going
What is it?
down one by one,
Okay. So here I go.
and
Here I go. Here I go. Here I go.
and you release the neck.
Okay, so that's that, right? How do I come up?
Think backing up with your sit bones,
With the what?
backing up with your sit bones.
Well, there's multiple ways of
Yeah.
coming back up. So that you can do the forehead away from chin, chin away from chest, and then chest away from stomach, and then you shoot straight up. But then there's also the rolling up vertebra by vertebra.
Can you tell me that again?
Forehead away from chin.
How is that possible?
I'm sorry, Jane?
How is that possible? What does that mean, forehead away from chin?
Or is it forehead away from chest?
Yes.
No, it's forehead away from chin. That's what people say.
But there's like two versions. There's like the one where we swoop and one where we roll up.
Yeah, I usually do the swooping one because this one hurts my back all the time, or my lower back. So I do the other one where I'm like,
Jane, I don't think we heard you.
can you say that again, Gene?
Was that forehead away from chin?
Here, Jean, I'll show you. This is, so in one of our warm-ups, we have to do, well, we don't have to, whatever, but we're here and we do like a forehead leading the spine up.
So let me show you. First, Hannah, that was excellent. Thank you. That's what I needed to know, right? This is what I saw, okay? Right? This rolling over like this and then this. Does that look comfortable? Does that look right?
No.
All right. So you have to be good scientists. You have to be good Alexander people, even though you're at the very, very beginning stages of Alexander. And remember, it takes, after even 3 years of training, minimum 1,600 hours, you feel nowhere. So you have to be very good to yourselves. This is your beginning. But you can think of a few principles, right? You can understand how everything, when we talk about lengthening spine, it's not a concept, it's psoas muscles. All movement in the body comes from the psoas. That is it. The psoas influences every major muscle group. If you're not using that, you're on the outside of the body trying to do something. So when I do that, again, it's very pleasurable, it's very joyful. That psoas is lengthening. So it's this. And I don't know if you can see then my feet as I come over, so I'll just move. Yeah. So I go up to move from my hip joints. Look where I am. Then when I come up, it's that. So I do it again this way. So you can see me. So it's this. So I think what the confusion is the language of head leading spine into length. That's the confusion, right? So a literal interpretation of that is head is leading spine, head is leading spine, head is leading spine. I can't go further than here. So you can never think of it literally like that. I know it's hard, but you have to, all movement comes from the hip joints. So that's the freedom we want, is that. See, the freedom we want is psoas. We don't want some artificial thing of saying, and I don't mean to say it's artificial, but you cannot feel vertebra to vertebra. You just can't. If you try to, you will be stilted and tight, right? It's a physical impossibility. You can't feel your vertebrae go one by one. That's a metaphor, right?
So when we have to roll up, when we do have to roll up like roll through the spine, what should we do?
Yes, Hannah, excellent. Very good question. You have to understand what constitutes the spine. That does not constitute the spine. That does.
Mm.
Let's rephrase this. That it is your lengthening spine, which is the psoas, because the psoas is going to influence all the erector spinae muscles, all the spine. So when that little piece of clip I sent over, I think to your class, my work with Jamie Graham, the lengthening and widening, you saw as I had hands on her legs, her entire being stretched in all directions internally. So you could say that. So this is if teacher tells me to do this, right? So I'm still going to go over how I know to go over, not from the outside of my body. You always, that said a lot. Don't go from the outside of your body. Your inner body influences the outer body. So when you're in this structure, you are completely free, right? Because you're in the structure. Now, if I try to make myself look free, look at my dead face, right? I'm not loading the dice. I promise you I'm not. I'm trying to do something called body, fix my body. But the moment I'm here, I'm a different person. I'm completely present with you, even on the screen. So always think inner body. Like that. And then you're hanging. See, you're just hanging. I don't know how much you can see, but there you are. Now, direction, feel your vertebra. I would still do this. So it brings me back up here with a sense of poise and grace and ease. Thoughts about that? Hannah, what did you see? Tell me.
Yeah, no, it's really helpful. I think it's just hard to navigate what a teacher asks us versus this is the thing, right? This is how to navigate what we're being asked and then reinterpret it into how we know is best for us and our bodies.
That is very wonderfully put. Yes, you have to understand, as Carolyn said after that very first Alexander class in the fall, she came up to me and she said, this is foundational. In point of fact, it is foundational. You are learning, very demanding, I know, but you are learning to bring to conscious awareness this phenomenal inner structure. You know, with the Michael Jordan thing that I sent you, and I didn't know where I had them because I used to always, as I wrote, bring all these pictures of Michael with me when I would give workshops, like to musicians, because I figured that they could all, because they were all guys in jazz program, that they could relate to it. And then I, stopped when he wasn't playing. But I came upon them yesterday or a couple days ago, and with Josh Kim, my lessons with Josh Kim, and I'm going to scan some of them. But I came. What I loved about the Michael Jordan things is this power of expression on his face with everything he did. And today I found this one. I thought I'm going to scan it and send it around because it's perfection. And I'm going to show you what she was saying about the coming back up, because this is what we want. I don't know if you can see it. It's very hard to see it. Maybe you can see it a little bit. Somebody had thrown him, he got down on the ground like that. And look at that expression, if you can see it on his face. But that's perfection of alignment. That is perfection. He is coming. Can't see it so great, but you can see it a little bit. He's doing this, which is essentially what little babies do to strengthen their back extensor muscles. When they're crawling, their head comes back like that. So if in point of fact, you were given that direction to do as you're coming up, and again, when it's right, you get a smile on your face. So that's your teacher. If you don't have a smile on your face, it's not right. It's not coming from the center. So if you were told, I mean, that is very unstabilizing to the body. See where it brings me? I don't think that's what was suggested, but that's what it done. But if you were doing this on the floor, if you wanted to feel the elasticity through all the muscles, and sometimes we get people crawling in our work, you do this, and that's elasticizing the back extensor muscles. So, all right, another warm-up, another thing that you might do that you might have questions on or want to know how to apply.
One question that I have.
Wait a second, Becky just had a chat. Becky, you want to say something? Goat or goosh, my God, or is this just an inside joke?
No, I just thought in that picture, it looks like that goose that you show us. He looks like the goose, and it just like, I don't know, clicked.
That's one. That's exactly.
Michael Jordan is frequently called the GOAT, which stands for greatest of all time.
Yeah, thank you. He is great. I mean, he is, right? Nick, you had something.
Oh, I don't know if other people struggle with this. I haven't done any movement stuff before school, and so this to me is still something that's kind of weird. And Sita has explained it, but maybe just not in the words that clicked super well. But like doing downward dog, does anyone else wonder if they're doing that right? Because we never really went into that. Okay, sweet. So that's not like just a me thing. Because I'm I just don't know. We talk about like hanging up from the sits bones when you do it, but it feels like we all kind of, when I look around in class back when we were in person, like everybody kind of has pretty different form for it. So yeah.
Where did that movement actually come from? I did this with Josh Kim. We were working the other day, and he was talking about going to yoga class. I don't know if it was in person. I doubt it was. But we started working with that. Where would that movement ideally be coming from?
Hanging up from the psoas, right? Would be the ideal.
Precisely right. So does anyone want to demonstrate it? Nick, are you willing to do it?
Let me. Okay.
Okay, now see how terrible I am, just like Melissa. Okay, now stop. And before you went up into that movement, which you actually did pretty well, but what went through your mind? Directing yourself.
I usually think of trying to get like a diagonal, like streaming like up this way from my arms, you know?
Okay, so say a little bit more about that, this diagonal.
Yeah, like I try and think of like having a straight line going up so that like there are like two kind of like peaks forming and shooting out up through my sits bones. What I'm trying to think about, but it usually does not end up that way.
How does that direction relate to the psoas?
Well, I think like that's controlling both, not halves, but like it connects the upper and lower body. So like the idea of if they're streaming up from there, if you're like, you could like hang just from the psoas and both would be controlled by it, right. Is what I'm trying to think about, but it doesn't feel right to my body.
Right. Is that it? Is that it, Nick?
That looks good to me.
That's psoas. It is not my arms. I'm not thinking my pelvis. I'm thinking about how the psoas, very similar to the pelvic lift or the torso lift, the psoas does the work. And I can hang. And as I hang from here, that's just psoas. That's just psoas. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. People, thoughts on that?
That makes sense. We do these inversions where It's kind of hard to describe. We're upside down essentially, and we're trying to kind of have a sense of that scoop. And did I freeze? A sense of that scoop, and our sit bones kind of being up and pushing out. And I kind of relate that to downward dog for myself, because it's and I guess that is because of the psoas. But like, yeah, when I feel like I'm like kind of aligned and my psoas is engaged in downward dog, I feel like my sit bones are like pushing out.
I think well, first tell me, what is the inversion? You mean the rollover?
No, I guess it'll be just easiest if I just like show you. I'll just do it real quickly. We just we're just showing you a bunch of different things now.
That's fine. Yes? No?
Here. I'm not gonna say anything more. I'm just gonna do it.
Okay.
Do this.
See, I have to see you. Hi, Wale. You just came onto the screen. Let me just get Sina.
Can you see me?
Yeah, now. Great.
You should do it from the side angle if you can.
Yeah, that would
go back.
We so it's like I'm like kind of hanging upside down, but I'm like against the wall, and my sit bones are like pushing out, ideally with my exhales.
And I feel like I feel like when it's like really going well, it's like my sit bones are like pushing out, and I kind of feel that same kind of like engagement in my spine with downward dog.
Okay, I'm going to caution you against thinking bones and outer body. So when you talk about your sits bones pushing out, the mentality of that is that you're doing something with your sits bones. So your mind has to always be in that quality of what it is, where movement comes from, rather than an outer body form, outer body position.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And, and I also just want to say one thing too, that when you are in that inner structure, so as diaphragm, you will breathe naturally. It'll just happen. It's quite extraordinary how that works. If you're trying to time your breathing or put breathing to movement, you're throwing off the inner structure.
Because I wanted to ask, like, well, how do we retrace the steps to be able to do that without kind of having those like like on a highway, you have like those, like this is mile, whatever, and that tells you where you are. Like the physical stuff, I feel like with like downward dog and like an inversion and a lot of the things we do, like that's how I kind of go outside in rather than inside out.
Exactly right. I think that's what I wanted to show in the beginning of class is how do you work with that amazing ability to, I mean, this is Alexander, to listen to something that informs you and informs the movement rather than going to the movement and then maybe adjusting oneself into something. Do you know, it's the language, as old-fashioned as it sounds, as stilted as it sounds, it's staying with the means whereby rather than the end. So you're always staying, what are my means whereby that I get into this position? You know, how do I do it? Do I just get myself any which way into the position and then try to readjust? Or am I really coming out of that connection before I do a speech? Am I alert to, you know, when in disgrace with fortune in men's eyes, that I am coming from this. I am on breath and I know my body so well. I know that inner place that speaks to me that you see I've been using this as an example. You see those great British Shakespearean actors on stage and they stand there with this presence of breath. They have this breath to them and they say everything on breath. So that is what communicates. So, you know, that's what we're working with, whatever you're doing. That was great perception, Sina. on your part.
Yeah.
One could agree with that we start to work from the outside in rather than taking the moment for ourselves. I mean, this is, pure Alexander. You take your moment, your what we call inhibitory moment. The inhibitory moment is you're not rushing to do something. You're not rushing to the end. You take that moment to come back to yourself, to know exactly, to listen to time, to come out of the flow of time, which isn't a mystery, it's psoas diaphragm. It's the psoas. So, that's how you work.
Yeah.
Anything else? This is extraordinary. This is how I adore working. Anything else from anyone that you want to delve into the movements?
My big observation from what you were doing, sometimes like I feel abdominal like work and effort happening, but with you, it was just you were able to talk freely, like, and on breath, like it seemed like your breath was flowing just like freely.
Right. And that might be a good practice is when you're going into these movements. Can you just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So, as I did it with the when I did the torso lift, and I could do it. But also if I show you something else that I've done with Kyle, actually. I don't see myself. Let me just double check. There I am. So I did this once with Kyle. And it was the head, lifting the head. So, and I said, just let the head rest lightly in the hands. And you're going to feel how the head lifts from the psoas like this. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. My hands are just monitors, and then I come back down. Now, if I were to maybe be given a direction, let's say, of tilting the head. Okay, just so you hear that direction. If I do something like this, you hear instantly in my voice, I promise you I'm not loading the dice at all. You hear the contraction, correct? But the moment is from the psoas. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What do you see? What is the difference?
There's a lengthening through from the psoas through the top of the spine as opposed to clenching down. It's a length up and over.
That's exactly right. It's exactly right. So that's the way you can work. And it's just filled with wonder. Do you know what I mean? I mean, you start to make all these discoveries on your own, and you start to take it into other things you do. And you say, this is just amazing. How is this possible? That's how I worked. That's how I worked, is that when I uncovered this in myself, it was like incredible to start doing all these different things and to come out of the movement. I remember once, very, very early on, and I had a student and he wanted to do yoga, and he was doing a back bend or something in yoga. He was great. He was a psychoanalyst, big, heavyset guy. And so he came to the lesson here in New Jersey with a stack of 5 cotton yoga blankets, 5 of them. And he put them behind his back to help him do this, sort of back bend sort of thing. And I'll never forget, he finished, he went, oh, his back. And then I had not ever done it, but I was in Alexander training, and I remember going into a back bend, and it amazed me. But that was the psoas. See, so if you start playing like this, and then you start to take it into some of these movements you're asked to do, you uncover a wealth of knowledge about how your body works, how the inner muscles work. So, it's great fun. It's really great fun. It's just, can you begin to taste the quality? And see, Josh, your eye is beautiful there because you saw how everything worked. If you can see it, it's in your own body, right? Anything else, anyone? Any movements that are bedeviling you? Okay.
I just wanted to mention with respect to something that Hannah had said earlier with regard to being sort of overwhelmed by warm-ups, just like, having 3 to 4 plus, if you sing, I'm sure you have warm-ups outside of the curriculum. But that, going back to what you've been speaking on with Alexander being foundational, and then it starts showing up, and I'll be doing a movement in any number of, whether it's a voice warm-up or whether it's a Feldenkrais warm-up, and I'll move in a way, and, as you've been speaking on, the distinction between being on and off breath,
Right.
I find my mind going to that place that, am I doing this, like, am I really being honest with myself when I'm performing this movement, or am I just kind of mechanically going through it?
Wow.
Is this, and I've also been finding it, and we spoke on this, working in, with music, with the metronome, this sense of having an external time has helped me get in touch with my internal rhythm, and my awareness of that has been, oh, that's what that is.
Right.
And I can start to, I've been catching myself, oh, I'm working in a way where I'm trying to will myself onto the time rather than allowing time to define my movements. And that has been a really great tool for me, has been just allowing the foundational aspects of Alexander to permeate the work that I do, both within and without, my acting curriculum.
That is wonderful. That is so wonderful. And I love the way you worded that. Am I being honest with myself? And let's face it, sometimes you're going to be in class and you just do it, but then having that knowledge is wonderful. So let's move on. Let's move on to another part. It's an interesting language we use, warm up, because it sort of is like, yeah, you're warming up. This is my prejudice, right? But it's about language, which I think is the warm up is very different from practice, because practice is that you're with something, you're uncovering, you're discovering, all of that. That constitutes practice. But warm up is I can understand why you just do it, right? Because it's a warm up. You're just, oh, well, okay, I'm warming myself up. So let's move on. Let's do another. Now we've covered movement pretty well, I think. Let's do another form of warm up. What would be something that you might do where you might feel like you're just sort of mindlessly going through the routine? Voice, is that what you do? Voice warm up? What might be some of the things that you might do in that?
A whole lot. I'm trying to think through it. It's hard to go out of context. We do lip trills. We do.
What do you do? I'm sorry, Hannah. What was that?
We do like drama stuff.
Now, where did you do that from, my dear friend?
Well, I wasn't doing it at all, Jean. It didn't happen. That doesn't count.
No, I heard right down there. Yeah. Where would that love
do it? It wasn't me.
Do you mean in general, Hannah, you don't do it, or you were just like?
No, I'm just being silly. Yeah.
Yeah, it sounded like you were just like, I understand this thing. So where would it want to come from if you were doing the lip buzz to the ma?
Well, so as diaphragm breath.
Right. So what invigorates the lips? What buzzes the lips?
Breath, airflow.
Specific, very specific. Of course you're right, Hannah, but I want even more specificity.
The diaphragm exhalation of the air pressure vibrating.
Very, very good, but you're missing the essential place. And what is that word, folks?
Psoas.
All together now.
Psoas.
Psoas. That is desire to express. Now, this is your art. Please understand, I know how hard this is. When Olga introduced me to Impulse, way back when I was 21 years old after college, it lived in me forever because she was such truth in her being, such a great artist, and I didn't understand it at all. She would sit there and she would you know, it's puppy dog, or she, you know, would talk about it in such a way, and I would think, is it emotion? She said, no, 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 it's not emotion. So, but it worked on me. It worked on me. It worked on me. I always was, what could it be? What could it be? What could it be? And then, of course, it comes upon you. If you're working that hard on wanting to discover, you do. So it's this, that takes me into, I'm just taking time, that takes me into another part. We're going to go do this lip buzz to the, but this thing that I think we all have to cultivate, and that's our sense of power, and not made up, just that thing. And you can't fear it. That's Michael Jordan. You can't, that's why I love those photos of him with this amazing, almost photo of anger on his face, right? Now, there are lots of them where he's getting thrown off balance and the look on his face is just, but that's that spontaneity of how emotion flows through all the tissues. So you cultivate this, you sit by yourself, like Eleanor Duza, who sat by her window absorbing, you know, you sit and you uncover this, and you all have the word for it, motor. But are you really aware of motor? You know, I think I told you maybe last week, or I told the second years at Niobe Center class, I don't know, it's all luring into one, that I read the biography of Leonard Bernstein, the great conductor, written by his daughter. And she said that Lenny, her father, loved people with motors, you know, because he had a motor. And he loved this Bolivian, he would have loved if he hadn't died, this Bolivian conductor, Gustavo Dudamel, because Gustavo has a motor. They have a life force, they have an energy. And that is what is going to talk to the diaphragm. And everything that Hannah said is absolutely right. But the lip buzz comes from here. Then if I do it with sound, it's not brr. See, that would be hear it. Brr, blah, all in the throat. Brr, blah, brr, brr, brr. Blah, 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 blah. I'm making it up. I don't know if that's the actual exercise, but I'm showing you my version of it, right? That everything has that power and energy of a blah, 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 blah. So, getting back to Hannah. Hannah, what observations, and is that anything like what you might have to do?
Yeah, no, it's really helpful. I think I fall into the trap in voice class of doing, for sure. So it's super helpful to start from the place when you, it's all about, this is the same, Jean, I don't know if you feel this way for singing, but it's all about that first note. It's all about the initiation of it. If you mess it up, then the rest of the phrase is out.
And what you have to understand is the more you're doing this work, you are continually in that state of exhalation. So it's not that fear, you know, it's like the conveyor belt is going on and you just step on it. You know, it's not the fear of starting. Everyone has this fear of starting, but part of what mitigates that fear of starting is that you're continually, this never leaves you. You're just always in the sense of movement and flow. So let's experiment with that. Let's experiment with just doing that. Let's experiment first with just doing. And I just want to say one more thing in context with what Hannah just said about initiation. This is a good exercise for that, because if we are initiating from here, you start to hear that going on. You'd see the deadness in my face, you would see the down in my body. But You could do this as a practice, you could do this very, very gently, barely nothing, and then just see, even at barely nothing, can I be on breath, like I'm talking to you now? That's very little, but it's very much on breath. And then take it into a longer. So experiment with that. We'll just do 15, 20 seconds of it. So. Always silently first. Yeah, no voice to it to start, and then we'll add the voice.
Oh.
And come to quietness. So you'll hear this on the recording. So if I do it from my mouth, which one can do? You hear that. There's a lot of activation here, but hear this one. What conveys more, right? What has the almost laser focus of energy? This one? Or
Ian, is there any way you can come closer to the screen?
or now, in essence, that's all you ever need to know about voice. It's all you ever need to know, because that is so purely so as to diaphragm. It's all you ever need, and then as compared to, can you hear that? That's totally in my throat. See, you can make a facsimile. You can do you can cheat and use George's language, not be truthful, right? And you can do, because it sounds like, well, for us, our ears are developed. It doesn't sound like the right sound, but you could almost pass, but it's not. Which is all this to diaphragm, period. There is no me involved. There's no bit of my effort. So do anyone have a question about that at all? The sort of the physiology, the logistics of it, the mental state, anything else?
I have a question.
Oh.
No, go ahead, G.
Oh, sorry, I didn't see you, Kyle.
No, go ahead. You're speaking first.
Just what's happening, like when you say like it's on voice versus like it's silent, it's like what am I activating that's like different? Because isn't air just like moving up and out of me, and like why is it that one is vibrating so, or like one is so clearly, like you say it's in the throat, and the other one is quieter, I guess.
Well, there are two parts of it. There's, just like we do the hiss, and the voice hiss, right? And we do the whisper counts and we do the voice counts. So here we're doing the silent lip buzz.
Right.
We do the voiced one. So it's the same thing. But when the silent one is happening, all you're doing is this motor is energizing breath to energize the lip, to buzz, to move the lips, to vibrate the lips, which is essentially what speech is. So that's not activating my vocal cords at all, right? It's passing through just like a whispered ah or a it's the same thing as a hiss, right? It's silent. The intention is, right? I mean, that's Heimajita. I hope you weren't waiting long. I just ended up saying your name a few minutes ago.
No, you're good.
So, it's the impulse. Something is invigorating me, and that's what is vibrating the vocal cord, just like that is an invigorated flow of air that is vibrating the vocal cord. So my process, right, every single second, it doesn't leave me for a second, but it's wonderful and joyful, and it feels so great to feel engaged, that something engages in me, that's where you want to live. So that is the difference. Kyle, and then G, if you have a question on it, ask again. But Kyle, what was your?
Yeah, I was gonna ask. I know you've said before with like the coyote howl that we sort of worked on, that there will be, if as the diaphragm is being strengthened, you know, there will be jumps, you know, where there won't be any. If you're staying with it, with the process of it and not trying to make a sound, will that happen? Because I'm starting to notice it too on when we're voicing the lip buzz. Is that a similar thing? Is that the same sort of idea that like you don't want to push through to keep that flow going, but stay with it even if there's no sound coming out?
That's exactly right. Excellent. Because at first it will not be strong enough, right? That connection is not strong enough, so it will be starts and stops. It could be, right? But if you get embarrassed by it or nervous, oh my God, you know, and then push forward, no, it doesn't work that way. You're absolutely right. Absolutely right. You stay with what you get. You're in a sense, in an odd way, training these inner muscles. And if you push forward endgainingly, then they don't develop. So that's exactly right.
Okay, cool.
Let's experiment now with what Hannah showed us, and then we'll do a little bit of work with text. So let's do our no, that's in the throat. Whoever just did that, I heard it in the throat. So don't get caught up in the endless repetition that in the throat. In the throat. Whoever did that, in the throat. That was good, Kyle. Excellent work. Really, when it's right, it is all up in here. And it sounds like this. When it's not so hot, you'll hear it like that. Rah, and then you can't, the ah part will only be in the throat. You couldn't bring it up into the focus of voice.
Wow.
That is awesome. Beautiful, Mashita. That's a beautiful song. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. That is terrific. So let's do some around voice counts of 10, and then we'll play a little bit with text and voice, hearing voice on breath. So, and then next week when we meet, bring more things like this to class so that we can, you know, really have it be very useful. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3,
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,
9, 10,
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4,
5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Stop. Thank you.
Thanks, Hannah, once again. So how many of you remember, it's really beautiful. Josh, that was the best you've ever done it. Totally on breath. It was terrific. But how many of you were very conscious at the end of it of the reflexive inhalation and the power of the body to open you and permit inhalation to come in? Most of you? Good. So if you haven't, let's do it again. And when you finish it, because you're all doing it very well, so you are on solos and diaphragm, so you are giving your body the conditions to trigger the reflexive inhalation. But honor it, appreciate this genius of this body to open you to let oxygen come in. The more you do that, the more connected you become to your creative mind, to creative unconscious. Inspiration, that means something. So, but excellent, superb work. Let's do it again, but a special, shout out to the inspiration. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7,
And stop. Excellent work. So I really want you to incorporate that into all of your practice of that appreciation of you stop and you permit the air to come in. So you have those two very distinct things that you're working on, and think about how rich the inhalation is, because our general end gaining mind will be to jump. We finish that excellent round of 10, then we're not even conscious of breath because we're jumping to do the next round of 10. So we hope we get that right. You stop and you say, no, I can be so present with this inhalation. You have no idea how that shifts something in the brain. And that's what you want. You want to become this instrument that is artistic and responsive and fluid and in time. So if you do that, it is powerful. It is so powerful. So I did Glory Be to God in Open Center class, and talking about what you and I were talking about. We're going to do the sipping, I think. And I asked this young woman who is just graduated from Williams and an English major, literature, and I said, Lisa, do you want to say anything about the poem? I'm sure you know it very well. And she said, well, you're describing it as exactly what the power of poetry is. The power of poetry is not in citing it, interpreting it. It is in embodying the words. And I thought that was so wonderful. I did the same thing to Daphne and Kyle last week. Please write down what you said because it was so brilliant. I said that to her. I said, Lisa, please write that down because that is just so wonderful. I want to tell my students that's what we've been working on. We embody language. Body it, we don't recite it, we don't try to interpret. And that's the beauty. So, you know, I think last week we did sipping, and I think we should review that. And again, I apologize for doing sipping because the classes now are blurring. But the whole essence to me of acting is that you say the word and you experience it at the same time that it's coming out of you. So if I say the word sip, 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 I'm experiencing it as I say it. So you could take that into your hiss, but you're sipping now. That's very good. I can hear you. That's really, really great. Right. And then you pause and air comes in. So that also strengthens your psoas muscles. So, you know, my teacher, Olga, used to say, pull hard, you know, and so you're there, pull. But that's not what she meant. She was trying to get us to appreciate and understand that inner place in her way. So one more time. Beautiful, Becky, beautiful. And I just want to say something. When you are engaged throughout all those muscles of the body, living the experience, which is what imagination is, living the experience, what comes over on one's face is so exquisitely beautiful, so filled with everything in the world. Becky, that was awesome. And it's very late for you, right? Or very early? One of the early, right? So to be able to do that well, terrific. So now we take the word glory. 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 Stay with that. That's right. Yeah, don't glory. 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 Glory.
Glory.
Glory. Glory. What I'm hearing, that's very good. Though that's really wonderful, some of you, but then the others I'm hearing, glory. Glory. See, that's in the throat. So your ear has to distinguish glory be to God, being in the throat. Glory be to God, being on breath. Great, George. Glory be to God.
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 Glory be to God. Glory be to God.
Glory be to God.
Glory
Glory be to
Glory
God.
be to God. Glory be to God.
Come on, everyone stop. Stop.
Right. So we have to have some sort of signal. So what I'm noticing is that some of you, I feel that, because it'll flash on my screen, that you're waiting for something. And I love that, because in point of fact, that's how you can practice. You wait for it. Glory be to God. And then it informs you and it comes out of you. Glory be to God. Glory be to God. Glory be to God.
Glory be to God.
Glory be to God.
That's it. Yes. Excellent.
Glory be to God.
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 Stop. Right. So I'll get a sign for next time. That's what I will do. I promise. But so you can practice glory be to God, 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 glory be to God. So you are not tempted to impose glory be to God, glory be to God, glory be to God, glory be to God, which you hear, correct, is coming from here. Glory be to God. Glory be to God. Glory be to God. It's just you. Glory be to God. It's not glory be to God. Do you hear the difference, people?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Glory be to God for dappled things. Glory be to dappled things. Glory be to God.
Glory be to God for dappled things.
Glory be to
Glory be to God for dappled
Glory
things.
be to God for dappled things.
Glory be to God for dappled things.
Glory be to God for dappled things.
Glory be to God for
Glory
dappled
be to God for dappled things.
Glory
Glory be to God for dappled things.
Glory be to God.
Glory be to God for dappled
Glory be
things.
to God.
Glory be to God for dappled things.
Glory
Glory be to God for dappled things.
dappled things.
And we stop. That's excellent. That's excellent. And the more, I really love that, the more that you could feel, glory, 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 hallelujah, glory be to God for dappled things. The more you use this thing that stretches through all your tissues and feel that radiation out from the center as you do things, the better it becomes. That is superb. We have a few more minutes, so let's do a couple more lines. Glory be to God for dappled things, for skies of couple colors.
Guys, is
Where is it going to take you? It's improvisation. You don't know where it's going to take you, right? Let it work for you, and just see what happens. The key to improvisation is that you're just keeping moving, and you're not filtering. You're not doing judgment work. You're just engaged. You're just letting it flow and flow and flow. And remember, what is flowing is breath. Breath is going to carry words, but that is part of the unconscious mind, the reflexibility of speech. Here we go. Just a few lines, and here we go.
glory be to God for dappled things.
Glory be to God for dappled things.
Guys,
Glory be to God for dappled things.
Glory be to God for dappled things.
dappled things.
Glory be to God for dappled things. For skies.
Glory be to God for dappled things.
For dappled things.
Glory be to God for dappled things.
Glory be to
Glory
God.
be to God for dappled
God
things.
for dappled things.
Dappled things. For sky.
Glory be to God for dappled things.
Glory be to God for dappled things.
I purple color.
Glory be to God for dappled things.
Glory be to God.
Be to God for dappled things.
Glory be to God for dappled things.
Glory be to God.
For dappled things.
Glory be to God for dappled things.
Glory be to God.
Glory be to God
Be to God for dappled things.
Glory be to God for dappled things.
for
Guys, color.
Glory be to God for dappled things.
The Father's
Glory be to
is best.
Glory be to God for dappled things. The
Beautiful.
sky, purple color.
Beautiful. Now that was, Becky, that was wonderful. Hannah, that was wonderful because you splashed on my screen. Tell me your experience and in relationship to what you had asked earlier about text.
Yeah, that felt so much better. So much better. I don't know. It's exactly what we were. I think something about the. I'm going to really incorporate the lip buzz exit because that was really helpful for me in terms of this is the place to start from, and that feeling I really recognize that feeling. So I started from that with the text of just like up and out kind of feeling.
And it's an inside job, right? Convincing oneself, and you have to extrapolate. That's speech is a reflex. You find yourself making words you're wrong. I'm going to be very dogmatic there, but it is really true because we don't make words. And you can be all talking to me very beautifully and on breath, and then you go to say the first line of text and it becomes, glory be to God. Right here. And so as demanding as it is for you, you have to start hearing the sound of your voice, your own voice, when it is on breath. And we start a class like this way, but it'll freak you out because you can think, Kyle, you want to say your experience last week? You went downstairs to dinner?
Oh yeah, I mean it was just really, I felt like embarrassed almost and naked. Like I didn't feel like myself. But then I listened back to the recording of like myself speaking on breath, and it sounded, I can hear the difference between when I'm speaking in my throat but what am I trying to say? The difference on the recording is a lot subtler than the difference that I'm experiencing in my body. It feels like a massive change, and I didn't feel like myself afterwards. I felt like it was like dissociative almost, because it was experiencing my voice in a different way, as opposed to me feeling like I have to talk and push so that I can hear myself. So it was really, no, outside, to my parents and my family, it's really not this difference, but inside, it felt like this huge dichotomy.
It really, really does. And we have to be okay with that and understand enough people telling you that it's, you sound no different, except that it carries so much more of who you are in your sound, the breath. Yeah. Sure.
It's funny, Kyle, because that really resonates with what I've been experiencing, which is like a relinquishing of control. Like, it's almost like the less I try to dictate how I sound, the more I sound like myself.
That's exactly right. And we only have the one thing that is within our control, and that is to continually renew this. And that makes us so strong. It makes us so powerful because, we're vulnerable and we feel especially exposed when we get on stage. I mean, there are very few people, and I really have never, maybe I've encountered one. Yes, I encountered one. And she came to New York, and immediately, she was 18, she got cast lead role in a soap opera on the basis of her audition, and then she never fulfilled her promise. So she was on it for like 2 years, and that was it. And I met her when I was teaching for Sandra Seacat. And she was so, she always bemoaned that. And she was so sort of lackadaisical about everything, and she never had any fear whatsoever. She never had any fear when she went on stage. And yet nothing came through her. And then when we started working more and more, she got really upset because all of a sudden she started to feel nervous before she went on stage. So that's sort of an interesting commentary. But I will say to you, the more you understand this, the more this comes to consciousness and you understand where it all comes from and how you respond to your text, you have something to hang on to. It's not going to be a magic cure that you're going to, not have your heart beating out of your chest before you get on stage, or maybe for the first few moments, but then you get totally in the flow. Observations, final comments from anyone,
Josh, go ahead.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. And for me, today I really felt the drinking in, because for the first time I got in touch with the front side of my spine, and that the psoas actually connects. Like, for the first time, I'm feeling like what the actual inner anatomy is, which allows like the feeling of drinking in as to be breathed in that way from the lip, from that, somehow that sparked it.
Right, and the drinking in, remember again, everything is in this direction, and there's something very beautiful when you're, if you're going from head down, I think you get this sort of look in your face, but the moment you go into this, something changes in us, Great. Somebody else had something. Thank you, Josh. Anything else from anyone?
I have something. I didn't realize that this class started at 9:30, but I thought it was 10:30 for some reason. But I didn't I didn't really think this was possible. But it's like y'all were all creating like a Zoom energy, like you're all like so azzy in sync that when I jumped into whatever you were doing, I just thought class had started like 2 minutes ago, and it took me 10 minutes to realize I was late to class. So shout out to everyone being so connected, because you're all like in your own homes and stuff, but it felt like it was a very easy like jump in for me, like with the lip trills and the count. Like that's how much everyone felt so connected that I didn't feel left out, to the point that it took me so long to realize I'd missed like warm up and everything.
Right, but that's excellent, and that really proves our point, doesn't it? That we can even be in this bizarre circumstance, but if we're all in this, it creates this phenomenal group energy that you got osmotically as soon as you entered the room. Really, it's outstanding work, everyone. So we hold forth next week, same time, same place. Beautiful. And if anything comes up during the week, give me a shout out and we'll work on it. But this was, my dream is to work this way, to take what you're doing in class and then to go into fundamentals. All right, is that a hand raised?
Jean.
All right, Fran.
I actually had a quick question.
Thank you,
Thank you so much.
Hi, thank you.
Thank you, Jean. Thank